Hey everybody, Text Talks here with another unscripted video, and the reason I'm making this video is for a couple reasons. First of all, I'm about to unlist the video that I already had with comments on the ending. If you want it, you've got a couple days to bookmark that and have it, but I'm not going to have it listed anymore because I'm not a big fan of it. I'm also kind of making this video in response to some tweeting I saw by a guy named Best Guy Ever who had a complaint about the ending that is a very common complaint, and it's probably the only complaint that I don't think is completely valid as a complaint. There's a lot of criticisms that I can respect if you're criticizing the ending, but this is, in my opinion, not really one of them. And that criticism is that we never saw a fight with Lord English. So what's up with that? And if you feel ripped off that you didn't see a fight with Lord English, I have to question whether or not you completely digested all of the imagery that you were shown. And if you didn't, that's fine. There's a lot here. Almost every single shot matters. So let's jump into that. So it all starts up around 4:24, 4:25. So the first shot we see is Lord English, obviously. This is going to be the fight with him. Not really the fight, but it's going to be all the information we're given about him. So here he is. So first thing we see is that his eyes turn into 8 balls. So until now, the reason that he's called Lord English is because English is a technique that you can apply in a pool game. It's a pretty advanced thing. Basically, English is where you hit the pool. It's when you hit the cue ball at a certain angle so that it applies spin to the cue ball so that the cue ball moves in an arc rather than a straight line. People can do that strategically and use that for lots of different reasons. And it's just kind of a subtle trick that you can do when you're hitting the cue ball, and that's why he's called Lord English. And I think because of that, we're supposed to infer that Lord English is supposed to be symbolic of the pool cue among his whole gang, among all his gang members. He's the pool cue, and or maybe even the player, but I think more likely the pool cue. He's the one that's been taking the shots, right? So in that sense, the reason that his eyes turn into 8 balls here is because he lays eyes on Vriska, who up until now has been symbolic of the 8 ball. So the argument I'm going to make is that from this picture, and also from a few other things that we see, we're supposed to infer that the roles have swapped between Lord English and Vriska. Vriska has become the pool cue, and Lord English has become the 8 ball. And obviously the 8 ball is the last thing you need to sink to win the game. And first of all, I think it's kind of fitting that Vriska is the one to have these roles swapped with, because she's the thief of light, right? So Lord English up until now has been. I said in my videos that light is supposed to be descriptive of free will, and up until now, it's Lord English's free will that's kind of inevitably controlled the Alpha timeline, and that role swapping is supposed to. I think it's fitting that Vriska steals that role from him of the pool cue, because now the free will is in the hands of her and all these people behind her. So she walks towards him. And now we see the cracks happening and the green sun collapsing and what that means. So the green sun collapses and becomes a big black hole. And it's a perfect circle. And it's a perfect circle amidst a felt canvas. And I think that it's pretty obvious from here that what Calliope's done for everybody is that she's set up the stage. She's set the stage for the final shot. Here's the pocket. This is the pocket on the pool table that we're supposed to be hitting Lord English into, who is now the 8 ball. So I think that's pretty obvious, right? Green on black, this is the pocket. And now we see Vriska opening up the treasure. And what's not so important here is the opening up of the treasure, but the fact that right after we see this, the treasure gets closed. So first we see Vriska open it, and then we see Caliborn close it. And I think that's supposed to be, again, symbolic of this kind of baton pass that's going on, this role swapping. So, first of all, just opening and closing, right? The doorway is open for the characters and Vriska, and it's closed up. The opportunities have closed for Caliborn. Not only that, it's the treasure that's being opened and closed. And we know that the treasure is something that once Caliborn uses is something that can only be used against him. So kind of by closing it here, we're supposed to think back to, when he uses it later on in his chronology. But the fact of the matter is we know he used it. And by doing that, he willingly knew that it was going to be used against him one day. So by using that treasure, he is at some point relinquishing his role as the pool cue. And we see that happening right here, when he snaps the pool cue in half. It's the pendulum on the clock, but if you look at it, it's a straight, rigid line with a cue ball, a very distinct cue ball at the end. He snaps this in half, and then immediately you see Vriska go into a very straight, rigid, become kind of a pool cue, right? She's the straight, rigid line, and right on top of her is the cue ball. And so, I mean, just look at this. Here, straight line, cue ball at the end. Straight line, cue ball at the end. These things look exactly the same, right? Again, Caliborn has lost his role as the pool cue. Vriska has gained her role as the pool cue. And the pool and the cue ball itself is, of course, the juju, which is, I like how they show us that it's a pool, that it is the cue ball first, and then show us that it's the house after that, as if to make sure that we're understanding what we're seeing here. So, yes, it is a house, but it's also supposed to be symbolic of the cue ball. And obviously the kids are inside of it. They got sucked in by Caliborn when he first used it. The four main kids, nobody else. And here it is. This is the final shot that's being taken. This is the game-winning shot. It falls to the ground. There's the hit. And then we see the shockwave go straight towards him. It's a straight line coming out from Vriska, who took that final shot, goes straight into him. It's symbolic of the final shot, right? The final shot will be the fight between the four main kids and him. But we don't need to see it. We see everything we need to see right here. Here's the 8-ball. He's the 8-ball. He gets hit by that final shockwave and gets thrown into the black hole. And that's the next thing we're going to see. We see some of this. We see Caliborn kind of becoming invincible. He is invincible, but that doesn't say that he can't be sucked into a black hole. And there it is. This is it. This is really all we need to see right here. Where is it? Think about it. It's the camera is zooming in towards the black hole. I think what we're seeing here really is Caliborn being thrown into this black hole from his own perspective. Right? He gets hit into the hole, and that's that. That's all we see. That's the rest of the fight. There's nothing else shown of this battle between Lord and English. That's implied, but we don't need to see it. All of the imagery is there, and I think to see a fight right after this would kind of hamper some of that. I'm not going to say I wouldn't have enjoyed it, but I think it's perfectly fine what we got here. And if you're annoyed that we didn't get a final battle, we did get a final battle. We got Collide, which was an 18-minute final battle that involved every major character up until now. So, I don't know. If you're wanting to see, like, the kids kind of prove themselves in some kind of final battle, you got that already. Maybe it wasn't the, like, battle that you were expecting to get, but it was a pretty damn cool thing that you got. So anyway, if you did get all that imagery and you still don't like that this is what happened, then that is perfectly acceptable. But hopefully you can at least see why I'm arguing now that I don't think that seeing a battle between the kids and Lord English is necessarily that important. We know exactly what happened. We can infer from the imagery what all the roles were for all the kids, who did what during the fight. It's pretty easy to imagine that Lord English he's invincible, he can't be defeated, but the green sun has collapsed, so he doesn't have teleporty powers anymore, he can't be warping everywhere. We've seen the kids beat plenty of, big foes up until then. We know that they probably are capable enough to throw him into there. And that's it. So, yeah. Hopefully, if this was a thing that was bothering you about the ending, you can maybe accept that it's okay. And if you can't, that's fine, but I've said my piece. And now I have something to share with people when they have this common complaint about the ending. So, again, do I want to go over this thing? Yeah, I think I will say one more thing while I'm here. This is not... another common complaint I hear is this Calliope right here. A lot of people think that seeing this dead version of Calliope be the one to really accomplish things undermines the alive Calliope that we saw already, because there could be so many other dead ones, right? There's an infinite number of dead Calliopes, right? So why is this one important? Why isn't the Calliope we've been following important? And I think that what I'm going to propose is just a theory, but I think that there's a lot of solid grounds for it, so maybe you can believe me. So the reason that I think this is okay comes from a thought that I had right over here with the troll army. Another common question I hear is, why are there so many dead trolls but not so many dead humans? Why is it all trolls in this army? Where are all the humans? And I think that if you entertained this idea that the only ghosts that we see, there's an infinite number of doomed timelines, but the only ghosts we see are ghosts from doomed timelines that contributed constructively towards the alpha timeline. If you entertain that idea that the only ghosts that we see in the comic are ghosts from doomed timelines that were essential towards the alpha timeline going the way it did, then I think that the group we see here makes a lot of sense. First of all, we do see some dead kids, right? We see the John from his doomed timeline that contributed. We see some dead Daves. We see some dead Jades. We see characters, but we don't see a whole lot of dead kids. It would make sense that there's a lot of beta trolls, right? The trolls that were post-scratch. The reason that it makes sense that there's a lot of beta trolls is because of Aradia. Aradia had to create hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doomed timelines, all of which were essential towards beating their final boss, towards beating their Black King. If there weren't hundreds and hundreds of doomed Aradias in that final battle who had come from doomed timelines to contribute in that fight against the Black King, then they wouldn't have won and the alpha timeline wouldn't have gone the way it did. So I think that all of the dead beta trolls that you see here are dead beta trolls from those doomed timelines with the Aradias that went back to the alpha timeline. And then the reason that there's a lot of pre-scratch trolls here is because simply their session went on for 6 years. It went on an incredible amount of time compared to all the other sessions. And so it would make sense that there's a lot of dead pre-scratch trolls here. In addition to that, you can also consider Damara, who it's kind of implied that she does more or less the same kind of havoc wreaking that Aradia does, and probably had a hand in creating a lot of doomed timelines along the way. So I think it makes sense that there's a lot of dead trolls here, but not a lot of dead humans, if you go by that idea, that the only ones you see here are from doomed timelines that contributed. Now, if you think that, and you go back to Calliope, then if you count up how many Calliopes there are, there's really only two. There's the Calliope pre-scratch, and there's the Calliope, not pre-scratch, sorry, there's the Calliope pre-retcon, and there's the Calliope post-retcon. I think that the Calliope that we're seeing right here on this picture is the pre-retcon Calliope. The reason that I say that is because Gamzee dies pre-retcon early. He never gets a chance to go to the new to Earth in the new universe and raise the cherubs. If he never gets to do that, then the cherubs probably never have communication with the humans. And Callie says at some point, I don't remember where, but at some point in Act 6, Callie speculates that if there is a version of her that predominated, then it would have been probably in a timeline where she never had communication with the human kids. She says that at one point. And I think that that's where this Calliope comes from. She comes from pre-retcon. I think pre-retcon, there would have been a Calliope, but there wouldn't have been one that that Calliope wouldn't have communicated with the kids. And so I think that's the one we're looking at. And then post-retcon is the Calliope that's alive that we see at the end of the story over, somewhere. Right there. So if you think that, then it kind of doesn't so much undermine either of the characters, because this Calliope gets to live, and this Calliope was completely content sacrificing herself so that one version of herself could live. These are the only two Calliopes, and I think that probably makes it feel a little less weird. And in fact, I really like that theory, because it means that the retcon was essential towards things playing out the way it did. You needed both of them. You needed that duality, and I like that because Homestuck has a lot of duality in the same way. So yeah, hopefully you can feel a little better about one of these two things, and that's all I have to say about the ending right now. I'll say more about it as we go on with my main series. But yeah, that's it. Subscribe if you've enjoyed, like if you enjoyed, and see you in the next one. Thanks.